Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff, and today we have first impressions video of the Eduard Bf109 G6. Now recently we did one on the Tamiya 109 G6, so we're going to have a look at this and then we'll be doing a separate video which will compare the two. Now this is the Bunny Fighter exclusive members edition. So it says up here, Eduard Exclusive Club, Bunny Fighters Club. So when you join the Eduard Club, you get a kit which is absolutely stuffed to the gills with bits and pieces. You get a T-shirt and you get a 15% discount for life. Now this has two kits in with two extraordinary markings, but it has other markings as well, which are a bit more normal. And basically, it's their normal 109 G6 kit that they've doubled up, and then they've shoved some etch in and they've shoved some resin in. Well, what we will do is we'll look at one of the kits and take a view on what we think. So reviewing the box is a little bit redundant for this video because this isn't typical being a members edition. What I will say is on the side of it here it does tell you what you get in the box, and that the t-shirt comes outside of the box in reality, but yeah, the resin bits and the etch. Okay, let's start by looking at the instructions. Now, even though this is aimed at the Bunny Fighter kit, it is a typical layout for Eduard. So we have an intro, so there's some history there, and we have the kit number there, which is Bunny Fighter Club 019. So there's a number of different models you can get when you join the club. On our first page we have the parts list. So as you can see, this is quite extensive. You've got the plastic sprues, we've got paint masks, we've got photo etch, and we've got resin parts, and we've got transparencies as in film. If we go to, and at the bottom we have the little paint shout out, which is Mr. Colour, and it also notes the RLM numbers, if so you can cross-reference them with your preferred brand of paint if you don't want to use theirs. Okay, so we start at the top, and the first thing that I notice is that the steps aren't numbered. They're just working through it. And right in the top corner it says, for Resin Cockpit, go to page 12. So let's do that. So that is the building up of the Resin Cockpit. So you've got plastic and resin options here. So let's start with the plastic. The plastic builds up with the floor pan. Already we are removing detail and adding photo etch. It's got the paint colours being shouted out as we go, and it's showing you the orientation of these parts that you've made. So we've got these control wheels here with a little bit of photo etch on them, and we've got the joystick there. We've got photo etch straps, and then we've got photo etch pedals. So the level of detail, even in the plastic kit, is really, really nice. And as we flip over, we're then putting interior detail into the fuselage halves. and adding the dashboard. Dashboard being built up here out of layers of photo etch, or there is the optional decal. And then again, it's showing the configuration of some of the photo etch that we've put in. So this is looking quite detailed and realistic because by adding the photo etch, you're bringing the detail out. It's not sort of moulded into the sidewall. Then we are putting the two fuselage halves together. And I notice again that we don't have a fully formed tail, so that's interesting. But we are putting in here the exhausts. And we're putting in the cockpit here. So a more traditional way of putting the cockpit together than perhaps we saw with the Tamiya one. Then we're dealing with building up the nose. So we've got the back plate for the cockpit there. We've got the bulges going on the side and the air scoop. And then we've got the machine gun openings being built up so that the top of the nose can then go in separately. So as long as that all fits nicely, that should be good. Then we've got a separate hinge and machine gun barrel tips to go on. And then we've got a little PE lip that goes over the top of the exhaust, but says with 13 only. Then we're building up the tail, which is individual pieces. Then we have the flaps and rudder going on, and then we're building up this tail wheel here, which is separate parts. The wheel is separate to those bits, so that is nice. Then we're building up the wing. So we start with the lower wing. We've got some plastic parts to build up for the liners of the gear bay. We have some drilling to do here for the centre rack. And then the wing uppers are going on, and the wing tips are moulded on in this instance. And then we have an option to remove that depending on which version you're building. And then we are adding the forward edge, ailerons, and then we move to the radiators, which look quite busy. We've got quite a bit of photo etch going in on there. Then we've got the various flaps and things going in. Again, they're showing you a side profile of the orientation. So they're all in the down position. Whether we can modify those to have them up if we wanted, I'm not sure. Then we've got building up the wheels, and again it's saying for the brassing wheels go to page 14, so we'll have a look at that in a minute. But we've got separate hubs front and back. Yeah, they look like they'll be nice. We'll have a look at the parts in a minute. So we put the landing gear in. We've got a little bit more photo etch going on, and then we're at that point of adding details. So we've got the little compass there. We've got the looks like a starter handle going in. We've got the canopy, which is being detailed with the latches and pieces like that. We have a little bit of rod that we have to add. So yeah, a lot of detail going into the canopy there with the grab handles and various things. Then we have the loops, and we've got options, plastic or photo etch. And the aerial cable start-off point is added on as photo etch as well. Then we're building up the propeller and the spinner and adding that in. And then finally we've got the little support for the open canopy, and it shows you there how that should fit in. So that all looks good. And then in this picture, it's showing you the build-up of the drop tank, which is a two-part tank added onto its mounting, which is then finally added in. And we have a little aerial of some type that sticks out the bottom. Then it takes you to the masks and shows you the positions of the mask. So even though they've got separate hubs, they have provided masks for masking the hub. And then you've got the various different mask positions for the canopy. Seems to be made up of various strips. Then we have an image of the additional extras, so the resin parts, the photo etch, the decal. And at this point we actually do have the instructions broken down into A and B because they're sub-assemblies that they can then be put in. So we start with A, and we've got a joystick there that is being looks really detailed. Joystick looks really detailed and very authentic. We've got the photo etch harnesses going into the resin seat bucket there. Lots of photo etch going in. These little resin parts being built up. It's giving you the paint instructions as you go, as they have done throughout the build, so that's nice. Yeah, very nice. We turn over. So we have more photo etch going on top of a very detailed resin interior anyway, and then we're building up the dashboard pretty much in the same way as we've already seen, with layers of photo etch, and then there's a couple of decals that they're showing going on top if you prefer, or I'd try and paint that, that's so detailed. Then more interior detail being built up, shows you the correct position. that part will be tiny, so that's really quite complicated, but you've got the film replacement rather than the clear plastic, which would be a bit chunky, so it just gives it a little bit more of a scale look and adds a bit of finesse. Then if you're using the Resin Cockpit, you've got quite a bit of clean up to do on the inside of the fuselage halves to remove what's been done moulded into the plastic. So imagine a bit of effort to get that to fit. Then they're going through the canopy again, so I don't know, looks like there's some additional extras for the canopy as well. Then we have the resin wheels and the masks, showing you that that's the plastic part. And then we've got the resin spinner and propeller. So the blades being resin will have minimal cleanup. There'll be no cleanup on the actual blades, which is good. And then there's a positioning tool for orientating the blades so that you've got the right angle on them. So that's a lovely touch. And then finally that goes together with the cannon mounted in there, and we have a little photo etch ring to go on the end. So that's a very detailed build-up with a lot of extras. Let's have a look at the paint options. So this is a fanciful one for the Bunny Club. It has the Eduard bunny on it, the carrot being a reference to the Carrot Wars, which is where the Bunny Club gets its name. So we'll move past that one. And then we have a more serious actual paint scheme. So this one includes Mickey Mouse and what I would assume is some form of winter. So Soviet Union, early 1944. Quite a nice little camouflage scheme that, with the yellow tips on the side. Quite like that one. Yeah, I do quite like that one. Then we go to Slovakia, September 44. And we've got a more grey one with a splinter pattern, but again, a really colourful set of decals on there, which makes that really quite nice. And you can see at the bottom what they've done is they've shouted out the RLL colours and then referenced Mr. Colour again. So that's two options. Then we've got the third option, which again is Slovakia, September 44. I'm just having a look to see what the obvious differences are. No, I don't see any major differences other than the writing on the nose cone, to be honest. Okay, that's interesting. Then on the next page we have all the stencils, and wow, haven't we got plenty of those. I do like a decal, so that's something I'd be looking forward to. Yeah, that looks really, really nice. Lots of decals there on the drop tank as well. So yeah, really good. There's some options there. We'd have to have a look at what that meant. And then on the back page, they list all the various optional extras you can get and give you some imagery of the brassing and the etch that we looked at in the process. So on to the decals, and what we get is a sheet that deals with all of the stencils, and we saw that there was lots and lots of them. So there's a couple of hours of fun just on that one piece of card there, I think. The decals say made in the Czech Republic. They don't feel too bad in terms of thickness. I'm looking very carefully at the register because of the issue we had with the Lysander. At this moment in time, I would say that they look okay. There's a fair amount of carrier film on them, and how well they'll perform, I don't know, but yeah, they certainly look the part, don't they? So then we have a second decal sheet which has the specific decals on for the various different options that you might end up building, including the little white swirl on the nose cone there. We've got the dashboard. Now under my thumb are the swastikas, so we have an option of making them up, as you can see here, or already made up, and there's a little dotted line there, so I imagine if they're selling in Germany, for example, they probably clip that off. But yeah, just like the other decals, they don't look too bad. Fair amount of carrier film on them, but yeah, they look quite nice. I do like the Mickey Mouse, and I think that's probably my preferred scheme for the second of the two kits that are included in the box. And we'll do something with bunnies on the other one, I would imagine. Next we have the little sheet of masking stickers. So these are all die cut, so we can just peel these off as we need to. If I show you, peel the edge off, you can see that they're die cut and ready to just peel off and put in place. And as we saw, there is some masking there for wheel hubs. I thought there was also masking for the tyres, but I don't see that in this little bag. But yeah, I'm not going to hold it up to the camera because you just won't see. Next we have the photo etch that would come as standard with the plastic kit if you were buying that version, not their weekend version but the other one. And we've got the straps there, which are pre-coloured and actually look really very nice. We've got the dashboard there, which is all pre-painted as well, so you can build that up and it should look perfectly good. Although, depending on your view, I think the pre-painted etch can feel a bit bumpy and look a little bit matte on the dial fronts. So you need to do something there to put a bit of a glass shine on them. And then you've got all those little radiator bits which look nice, and some of the other tiny details for the inside the cockpit, the pedals there. That was a panel to go on the outside underneath the aircraft, and then the little radio loop. All looks very nice. So my first plastic sprues out of the box are the wing sections. So we've got a lower half there, the two upper halves. There is a lot of rivet detail included on this. Very fine detail indeed. Lots and lots of different texturing. As I run my finger over it, I can feel all sorts of little raised details as well as the scribed in details. So yeah, very nicely done. Yeah, I have no issues with that at all. I can't see any sink. Nice and crisp. No obvious flash. When I look at the top wings, then we've got the tip moulded in, and we've got connection points right on the leading edge, which means we have some very careful cleanup to do. And also means that we have to paint the little light there. Also, we've got the pitot tube already moulded in, and I can already see that that's slightly damaged, it's slightly bent, so that looks a bit vulnerable there, so I'm not so keen on that. And as I flip it over, there is some detail there for inside the gear bay if you've got the wheels down. But lots and lots and lots of lovely detail on there, although it does look a bit like we have some sink. Whether that's going to be noticeable under paint, but there's no way you would sort the sink out there. Can I show that on the line? There's no way you're going to sort that sink out. It's just there without losing all that detail. So the next sprue out of the box has the two fuselage halves on. We have the bulges which go on each side there, and the tail components. We also have the bit that goes on the top of the nose there with where the machine guns come out. We have two different ones. The difference is very subtle. It's just some panel lines that are different, some additional panel lines on that one. When I look at the fuselage halves, the first thing that hits you is lots and lots of rivet detail reflecting in the light, and that carries round all the way through, although underneath here I can see where they should be, but they're not very well formed. They're a bit soft and not very deep, so they've almost disappeared, but the rest of them seem to be okay. I'm just looking for any sink. Don't see any sink, so that's all good, although there might be. You can see there's a little ejector pin mark there. There appears to be a tiny bit of sink behind it, but it's not noticeable. Under paint it won't look bad. It might not even show up at all, so no issues with that. The bulges, again, lots of very, very lightly done detail which will easily get lost in paint, particularly if you're brushing. And the seam around it, the sort of the flange that gets fastened down, is so thin that it actually looks like flash, but it's not. There is seam lines on this, but it's not massively heavy. It's very light. So yeah, that's quite nice actually. On the other side, there is some detail on the inside, but it's not extensive. What we don't have is any ejector pin marks in that area. So next we have a large sprue. The parts are well spaced out, which is why this sprue has ended up so big, I guess. When you consider that there is no engine included in this kit, the part count is actually quite high. So we've got the exhausts here, which have the little seam on nicely depicted, and they are nicely opened up on the end. So as plastic parts, they're really good. We've got the drop tank there. We've got the radiator bulges, which have got lovely detail on. We've got the got various different sort of tail parts and flaps, all very nicely done. So all sorts of different versions on the same sprue here. There was a lot of parts not needed for this version that are included on here. The filter is a single piece, which is nice, but these are two halves. Lots of small details. Now, these look like the cannons, and they are open. They have all got holes in the ends, so that's nice. Yeah, it's all lovely. Although there is not much detail on the mounting point for the drop tank. Whether that's right, I'm not sure. You see all the rivet detail on those surfaces. Really lovely. And the open ends there on your various cannons. And then we've got two different sizes of tail wheels there, again separate, so should look really nice when painted up. Yeah, that all looks really good. Now in the same bag we get this sprue here, which has got another drop tank variant on it. We've got the inside bits for the inside the wing where the gear goes. We've got the two different types of dial arrays. You've got a flat one there for the photo etch and one there that you can paint up, and there's your cockpit inners. We've got all sorts of different bits of ordnance there, and then we've got different shaped propellers. Some of the detail that goes inside the cockpit here. And then we've got the plastic tyres, which, yeah, we've got different versions of that. We've got smooth and we've got with tread, and they have sidewall wording detail, which is subtle but nice, really nice. The spinner has 3 connection points, so there's quite a bit of cleanup on the spinner, but it does appear to have all the screw heads on the top of it, so that's nice. Some lovely rivet detail on the surface of the strut covers, and surface detail on the inside as well. The struts have got a bit of flash on them, but and a bit of sink, so they'll need a little bit of work. And finally we have the clear parts, and the first impression is they're ever so slightly foggy. They have a slight matte to them, so they're not very shiny. Certainly not the clearest parts that I've seen. The detail on them, however, is nice. I can feel the rivet detail. Sometimes a bit difficult to see it on clear parts. There is quite a bit of distortion in them, though, in that one particularly. And a lot of sink in that one, but I'm not sure if that's supposed to be like a cushion, a headrest or something, in which case it looks really nice. If it's supposed to be flat and smooth, it's dreadful. I think that's probably supposed to be like that. We have some form of pipe work there that's clear as well, which is interesting. Not sure I've seen that before. The opening part of the canopy, that seems to be done quite well, but again is a little foggy. Not the best clear parts I've ever seen, and we've got some flash on some of them. There's lots of different options in here, obviously. But as always with clear parts, they look a lot clearer once they're on the model, actually. Yeah, they'll need a dip in some clear varnish to bring them out a bit, I think. But they look okay. So now we have all these optional extras that you can buy. So just going to have a look at what all this looks like. So now we have all the optional extras, which is the brassing range. So let's take a look at those. Okay, so I've opened the first bag, and in there we've got some additional masks, which are for the outside rims of the tyres. Thought I'd seen that there. They're clearly an additional mask set. We have an additional dashboard decal, which I'm guessing is because we've only got one in the other decals. We've got the clear transparencies which go on some of the resin parts that replace the clear parts. You can see there that you get several of each, so you've got a couple of bites at the cherry, unless of course you're using them on both kits, in which case you'll need to be a little bit more careful. We have a tiny, really small photo etch fret here, which I think that is the little ring that goes on the spinner for the cannon in the centre of the spinner. Then we have an additional etch set, and there's only one of these included, so you're only going to apply this to one of the two models supplied in the box. But some of this is duplication of the photo etch we've already seen, of which there was 2 sets. So we've got the hand wheels, we've got the pedals with the stirrups on, and we've got some internal control cabling and levers and bits and pieces. So not a huge amount, and should be relatively easy to put together, I would imagine. And finally we have another interior set which has yet another set of dials and harnesses. So we've got 3 of those now for 2 kits, and I don't really see what the difference is, but we have them, so we've got options. Same comment applies on it being pre-painted. Okay, so resin wheels are next, and to be honest, I don't see a massive improvement on the kit parts here. They're slightly weighted, which is a benefit if you're wanting to show the aircraft on the ground, whereas the kit parts weren't, I don't think. but the hubs are moulded in, so you've got more masking to do, which can be problematic, particularly masking the hubs. I mean, they look lovely, but they're not a light year ahead of what was in the kit. So, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily go out and buy those myself, but as they came with the kit, all good. So we're looking at the propeller and spinner now that comes as a brassing set, and what you've got is the 3 blades there on the connection block at the bottom, so you just have to remove those. There's no cleanup needed, and they have a very fine edge to them, so they're very nice. You've got the cannon, but it's not particularly countersunk any more than the plastic part would be. So I don't see there's a big improvement in that part, but looks okay. Then we've got this tool which is designed for this to go in like so, and then you can mount your blade on, rests on there so that you get the angle correct. So I like that idea. That's a nice little tool, and the detail on that is really lovely. So you have to take a blade and cut the whole of this solid block off at the back. So that'll take a little bit of time to get that removed and cleaned up nicely. Then we've got a replacement spinner, which has got some nice detail on, and the connection points are on the nose cone, so easier to clean up than the connection points from the sprue along that edge, actually, I would think. I'm going to guess, unless it's hollow inside, I'm going to guess you've then got to drill a hole through to allow the cannon to go in. And then that will glue onto there. Only it's a slightly different size. That's interesting. So I don't know if that's accurate or not, but if I centre that, you have a very small lip all the way around, which might be accurate. It might not. We'd have to check my references for that, but the actual quality of the parts is really good. There's nothing wrong with the plastic parts. They're perfectly good to use. This is, again, a small upgrade, and probably quite a bit of work to get there, but depending on how you want to show it, if you wanted to show it without the spinner on, some of the detail on there is very nice. And then finally we have this resin cockpit. Now, I've never built a resin cockpit before, so it's interesting for me to see this. The resin is all very nice and crisp, no air bubbles that I can see, so all looks really quite nice. So this is the base that replaces the kit part, and as we can see, we've got some extra detail on there and more texturing, so that's nice. We've got a bulkhead with more detail on there, and that goes in the top part of the airframe there, and again adds a little bit more detail. We've got a dashboard for painting and a sort of partly flat one for the photo etch, so you've got your options there. We've got some of the parts that are moulded in and plastic separate on the resin so that they're nice and crisp. Some small components there, that's the compass. Not quite sure what those parts are, but some boxes, very nicely done. That's the seat bottom there. The parachute goes in there, that'd be huge. and then we've got the joystick there, which looks really businesslike. And then finally we've got these two internal sidewalls, which are very, very busy. Will look really nice under paint. Yeah, like that. And lastly, we've got some tiny parts, details to go in the cockpit there, and then some clear parts as well. Oh, lovely. Right then, so what do I think of Eduard's Bf109 G6? Well, what I would say is you get a nice kit overall. The plastic parts got lots and lots of detail on them in terms of surface detail, mechanical fasteners, rivets, panel lines, all good. One or two areas where we saw the moulding process, or the limits of the moulding process showing through, where rivet details slightly lighter and not quite as deep as it is in other areas. So depending on the fit, you've got something that's more than adequate to give you a good representation of the aircraft you're building. The thing that stood out in terms of positives is you're getting some photo etch. So we had the seat harnesses, which you could put in as you wanted. You've got the all the dials there that you can build up, and if you put some varnish on, you can really make those look okay. And there is enough detail in there to show off the interior of the cockpit and make it look suitably busy. Another highlight for me was the separate tail wheel, which I think is a nice touch and will add to the realism. You're not relying on paint techniques to make that look real. Downsides, there's no engine included, so there's nothing you're going to do to show off an engine there. The clear parts were not as clear and had quite a bit of... The clear parts were not as clear and had an amount of distortion, so not the best clear parts I've ever seen. So there's pros and cons to this kit. It's like anything when it comes to buying models. You pay your money, you take your choice. It depends on what your budget is, and it depends on how accurate you want to build it, or whether you're happy just to build something that looks pretty much like it should do. The paint options given you were okay and quite interesting, and slightly different to the norm, so I quite like that. Taking out the sort of the club edition one, the ordinary ones were nice. When it comes to the extra brassing details, some of those were nice to haves, and some of those didn't really make much difference. The cockpit particularly stood out as something that's going to create an extra level, but there's quite a bit of work to do that in terms of cleaning up the fuselage halves as well as building up the resin parts. And then of course you don't get a pilot, so you're having to source a separate pilot if you wish to, but that is how Eduard managed their costs, and you know, that is a very nice kit all in all. There was no major issues with flash or sink or ejector pin marks, so I'd have no issues buying that and building that up, and I think it will probably look really quite good when finished. So it will be interesting to see how it gets on when we compare this directly with the Tamiya one, which will be coming up in another video soon. Okay, hope that was interesting and useful. Take care everyone, enjoy your modelling, and we will see you very soon.